Congratulations to all the grandchildren who will be starting college this fall with their trust funds. Grandma Helen's voice rang out across the packed dining room. Emma, Michael, Sarah, David, and Jessica, we're so proud of you all. I watched my 17-year-old daughter Lily's face crumble as her name was deliberately omitted from the list, her college acceptance letter still clutched in her trembling hand. My name is Rebecca Martinez, and I should have seen this coming. 20 years ago, I was the golden child of the Thompson family, Helen, and Robert's youngest daughter, the one who could do no wrong. I had the perfect grades, the perfect boyfriend from the right family, and a future mapped out in boardrooms and country clubs. I was their princess, their pride and joy. Every achievement was celebrated, every milestone photographed and framed. My debutante ball made the society pages. My engagement to William Ashford III was announced in the country club newsletter. I was following the script they'd written for my life with perfect precision. Then I fell in love with Carlos. Carlos Martinez wasn't part of their world. He was a mechanic's son who worked 2 jobs to put himself through community college. He had calloused hands from honest work, a genuine smile that lit up rooms, and dreams bigger than his bank account. He spoke Spanish to his grandmother, and fixed cars with the same care other men wrote poetry. When I brought him to Sunday dinner, the silence was deafening. "He's very nice, dear," my mother had said, the word nice delivered like a terminal diagnosis. My father was more direct. "You're throwing your life away for some grease monkey. What will people think?" But I was 22 and drowning in love, and I thought love conquered all. I thought their disapproval would fade when they saw how happy Carlos made me, when they witnessed his intelligence, his ambition, his unwavering devotion to family. I was naive. The engagement to William ended with shouting matches and returned rings. My parents threatened to cut me off financially. My friends whispered behind perfectly manicured hands. The country club crowd looked at me with a mixture of pity and scandal-hungry fascination. "She's having some kind of breakdown," I heard Mrs. Ashford tell her bridge group. "It's the only explanation." Carlos and I eloped 6 months later in a small ceremony at the courthouse, with only his family in attendance. My parents didn't speak to me for 2 years. My sister Patricia barely acknowledged my existence. My brother Jonathan acted like I was a stranger when we crossed paths in town. The silence was deafening, but Carlos's love was louder. The reconciliation came slowly, grudgingly, and only after considerable begging on my part. When I got pregnant with Lily, I foolishly hoped it would bridge the gap. When she was born, my mother softened slightly. There were birthday cards with small checks instead of generous gifts, Christmas presents that were practical rather than thoughtful, and invitations to family gatherings that always came with subtle reminders of what I'd given up. "Your cousin Emma is studying pre-med at Stanford," my mother would say, watching Lily play with hand-me-down toys while Emma showed off the latest iPhone. "Such a bright girl. Patricia must be so proud." Michael got into Harvard Law. "Such a bright boy." The family tradition continued. The comparisons were constant and calculated. Every achievement by my siblings' children was a weapon used to remind me of my poor choices. Every family gathering became a performance where I was expected to smile and nod while my daughter was treated like a charity case. But I told myself it didn't matter. Carlos and I built a good life despite their disapproval. He worked his way up from mechanic to shop foreman to owning his own auto repair business. I finished my degree part-time and became a social worker, helping families navigate crisis, something I'd learned about firsthand. We weren't wealthy by Thompson family standards, but we were rich in ways they couldn't understand. We were proud of what we'd built. We were enough for each other. Or so I thought, until the night I watched my daughter's heart break in real time. The years between Lily's birth and that terrible anniversary party were filled with small cruelties disguised as family tradition. There was the Christmas when all the other grandchildren received new iPads, while Lily got a $20 gift card. The graduation party where my parents hired a photographer to take grandchildren photos that somehow never included Lily. The summer vacation to the family lake house where there was mysteriously no room for the 3 of us, despite the house having 6 bedrooms. Each slight was small enough to question, subtle enough to make me wonder if I was being oversensitive. But they accumulated like paper cuts, each one tiny but collectively devastating. Maybe we should just stop going to these things, Carlos suggested after one particularly painful Easter dinner where Lily spent the entire meal listening to her cousins discuss their European vacation plan. No, I said, though my heart was breaking for my daughter. She shouldn't have to lose her entire extended family because I married for love instead of status. But love, I was learning, wasn't always enough to protect the people you cared about most. Lily was our miracle, our everything. And from the moment she drew her first breath she was fighting. Born 3 weeks early after a complicated pregnancy that had me on bed rest for months, she came into the world with her fists clenched and her eyes wide open, as if she was ready to take on whatever challenges awaited her. She inherited Carlos's determination and my stubborn streak, but she was entirely her own person from day one. While other toddlers were content with picture books, 3-year-old Lily was sounding out words on cereal boxes. By age 5 she was reading chapter books and asking questions that left me scrambling for age-appropriate answers about everything from quantum physics to social justice. Why do some kids at school have brand new backpacks while others carry their books in grocery bags? She asked when she was 7, having noticed the economic disparities in her elementary school with the sharp eye of someone who was learning to navigate between two worlds. Because not everyone has the same amount of money, baby, I explained. But they're all smart. They all deserve nice things. That was Lily, seeing inequality and instinctively understanding it was wrong, even when she couldn't articulate why. By 10 she was tutoring older kids in math, staying after school to help struggling classmates understand concepts that came naturally to her. By 12 she was writing for the school newspaper and asking me probing questions about my work as a social worker. By 15 she was building websites for local businesses, charging modest fees that she saved religiously in a college fund jar that sat on her dresser like a beacon of hope. Every penny went into that jar: birthday money from Carlos's relatives, payment for babysitting the neighbor's kids, cash from her weekend job at the farmer's market, helping elderly vendors carry their produce. She'd count it periodically, calculating how much she'd need for application fees, for her first semester, for books and supplies. Mija, Carlos would say, watching her hunched over homework at the kitchen table at midnight after working a 6-hour shift. You're going to change the world. She believed him with the fierce certainty of youth. More importantly, I believed him with the desperate hope of a mother watching her child outgrow every expectation. Lily had dreams that reached beyond our small town, beyond the limitations others tried to place on her. She wanted to be a journalist, to tell stories that mattered, to shine light in dark corners, and give voice to people who weren't being heard. She read voraciously, everything from investigative reports in major newspapers, to memoirs by war correspondents to academic papers on media. I want to write about real things, Mom, she told me when she was 16, showing me an article she'd written about the local homeless shelter that had been picked up by the regional paper. I want to make people care about stuff they might not notice otherwise. The article was profound in its compassion and sophisticated in its analysis. Reading it, I felt a mixture of pride and heartbreak, pride at her talent and empathy, heartbreak at knowing how hard she'd have to fight for opportunities that came easily to others. When Lily's acceptance letter to Northwestern University arrived, thick envelope, full admission to their prestigious journalism program, I cried. Carlos took the day off work and we celebrated with ice cream and tears and dreams of her bright future. The tuition was steep, steeper than anything we'd ever contemplated, but we'd made sacrifices before. We'd take out loans, we'd figure it out. What we hadn't figured on was discovering the depth of my family's calculated cruelty. I'd known about the college funds. Of course, my parents had mentioned over the years that they were setting money aside for the grandchildren's education. It was one of their favorite topics at family gatherings. Their generosity, their foresight, their commitment to the next generation's success. What I hadn't realized, in my naive assumption that grandchildren were grandchildren, was that grandchildren apparently had very specific qualifications in the Thompson family lexicon. My sister Patricia's 3 kids, Emma, Michael, and Sarah, each had $150,000 waiting for them in carefully managed trust funds. My brother Jonathan's twins, David and Jessica, had the same amount set aside. My daughter? Nothing. Not even an acknowledgement that she might need or deserve the same opportunities as her cousins. Well, my mother had said when I finally worked up the courage to ask about Lily's fund during a tense phone conversation, We assumed Carlos would provide for his own child. That's what fathers do, isn't it? His own child. The words hit me like physical blows, as if Lily wasn't their granddaughter after 17 years of birthdays and Christmas mornings and school plays they'd attended with thin smile, as if DNA stopped mattering the moment I married outside their approved social circle, as if love could be withdrawn as easily as financial support. But Lily didn't know about the inequality. She knew her cousins had college funds. It was impossible to miss the casual references to not worrying about tuition and focusing on academics instead of money. But in her generous heart, she assumed all the grandchildren were equally provided for. She was excited to join them at the family dinner where the college announcements would be made. "I can't wait to tell everyone about Northwestern, Mom," she'd said, practically bouncing in the passenger seat on the drive over to Patricia's anniversary party. "Grandma Helen is going to be so proud. I bet she'll want to put it in the country club newsletter." Her excitement was infectious and heartbreaking. She was 17 years old, brilliant and accomplished and full of hope, and she had no idea she was walking into an emotional ambush. I should have warned her. I should have prepared her. I should have turned the car around and driven home, protecting her from the cruelty I knew was coming. Instead, I parked outside the country club and watched my daughter check her reflection in the visor mirror, smoothing her hair and straightening the simple black dress she'd bought with her own money, wanting to look perfect for a family that had never once made her feel like she belonged. Instead, I walked her into a room full of people who were about to teach her the most painful lesson of her young life, that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are the ones who hurt you most. The months following that dinner were the hardest of our lives. Lily tried to hide her hurt, but I saw it in the way she avoided family gatherings, the way she stopped mentioning Northwestern, the way she researched cheaper state schools with a resignation that broke my heart. "Maybe community college first," she said one night, closing her laptop with a soft thud. "Save money." "Absolutely not," Carlos said, his voice firm. "You earned Northwestern. You're going to Northwestern." We refinanced the house. Carlos took on weekend work. I picked up evening shifts at the crisis center. Lily got a job at the local coffee shop, working 20 hours a week on top of her full course load, and maintaining her 4.2 GPA. We were exhausted, stretched thin, but we were doing it together. Some nights I'd find Lily at her desk at midnight, finishing homework after an 8-hour shift, and I'd want to march over to my parents' house and demand they explain how she was less deserving than her cousins, how her dreams mattered less, how their love apparently came with conditions I'd never known existed. But I didn't. I held my tongue, swallowed my pride, and we kept climbing. Lily thrived, despite everything. She won a small scholarship from the local Rotary Club. She freelanced as a tutor. She wrote articles for the school newspaper that were so good they were picked up by the regional paper. She was becoming exactly who she was meant to be: brilliant, determined, resilient. Still, the financial pressure was crushing. Carlos developed an ulcer from stress. I started getting migraines from working double shifts. Our marriage strained under the weight of constant worry about money, about Lily's future, about whether we were doing enough. The hardest part was watching Lily pretend everything was fine when we'd run into her cousins around town. Emma would talk about her dorm room shopping for Stanford. Michael would casually mention his spring break trip to Europe before starting at Harvard, and Lily would smile and nod and ask interested questions, never once mentioning that she was working 50 hours a week just to afford her textbooks. My daughter had more grace at 17 than my parents had shown in their entire lives. The invitation to Patricia's anniversary party arrived on cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing. 30 years of marriage, it announced, and the whole family was expected to celebrate. "We don't have to go," Carlos said, reading the tension in my shoulder. "Yes, we do," I replied, though every fiber of my being wanted to throw the invitation in the trash. Lily shouldn't have to pay for their mistakes by missing out on family. But mostly I was tired of running, tired of making excuses, tired of letting my parents' disapproval dictate our lives. The party was at their country club, naturally. The same place where I'd had my debutante ball 25 years earlier, back when I was still the daughter they claimed with pride. The same place where Carlos and I would never have been welcome as members. Lily dressed carefully for the occasion. A simple black dress she'd bought with her coffee shop earnings, paired with the pearl earrings Carlos and I had given her for her 17th birthday. She looked beautiful and poised, and I was so proud I could barely breathe. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone," I told her as we walked into the club. "I know, Mom," she said, squeezing my hand. but I want them to see who I am. The party was everything I expected. Elegant, expensive, and designed to remind everyone of their place in the family hierarchy. Patricia and her husband held court in the center of the room, while the grandchildren clustered around the dessert table comparing college plans and summer internships. I watched Lily join her cousins, her smile bright but fragile. Emma was showing everyone pictures of her Stanford dorm room on her phone. Michael was describing his upcoming internship at a prestigious law firm. Sarah was complaining about having to choose between Duke and Vanderbilt. Such wonderful opportunities, my mother said, appearing at my elbow with her practiced smile. These children have such bright futures ahead of them. The emphasis on these children wasn't lost on me. All of them do, I said evenly. Of course, dear, though some paths are more practical than others. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. The speeches started after dinner. Patricia and her husband thanked everyone for coming, for 30 years of love and support, for the joy of watching their children grow into successful adults. And speaking of success, Patricia continued, we thought this would be the perfect time to update everyone on our college-bound seniors. As you know, Mom and Dad have been so generous in providing for their future. She gestured to the 5 cousins, who stood together like a graduation photo come to life. Emma will be studying pre-med at Stanford. Michael is headed to Harvard Law's accelerated program. Sarah chose Duke for their excellent business program, and the twins David and Jessica are both going to Northwestern. David for engineering and Jessica for their prestigious journalism program. My blood turned to ice. Northwestern. Jessica was going to Northwestern for journalism, the same program Lily had fought so hard to get into, the same program she was scraping together every penny to afford. I looked at Lily, saw her face go pale as the connection hit her. Same school, same program, same dreams, but Jessica would live in luxury while Lily worked 3 jobs. We're just so grateful, Patricia continued, that our children won't have to worry about finances while they focus on their studies. There's nothing more important than education, and nothing more wonderful than being able to give your children every opportunity. The words hung in the air like a slap. That's when Lily did something unexpected. She pulled out her phone, opened her laptop case, and powered up her MacBook Pro, the one she'd bought used and refurbished with money from tutoring and coffee shop shifts. Actually, she said, her voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room, I have something to share too. Lily dear, not now, my mother said, but Lily was already standing, her laptop balanced in her hands. I'm sorry, Grandma Helen, but I think this is the perfect time. Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands trembling slightly. Since we're talking about college and opportunities and family support, she turned the laptop screen toward the room. On it was her website, a beautifully designed portfolio showcasing 3 years of journalism work, articles she'd written, photographs she'd taken, a documentary she'd produced about local small businesses during the pandemic. My name is Lily Martinez Thompson, she began, using both our surnames with deliberate emphasis, and I'm also going to Northwestern in the fall, for journalism. Just like Jessica, a murmur went through the room. I saw Patricia's face tighten. The difference is, Lily continued, her voice growing stronger, I'm paying my own way, not because my parents can't afford it, they're working themselves to exhaustion trying to help me, but because apparently, some grandchildren are more worthy of family support than others. Lily, my father started, but she wasn't finished. Do you want to know what I've learned about journalism in the past 3 years? The most important thing is truth, so here's some truth for all of you. She clicked to the next slide on her presentation. It was a spreadsheet, meticulously detailed. I've worked 127 hours in the past year. That's between school, my job at Henderson's Coffee, tutoring 3 kids in math and English, and freelance writing for the Regional Tribune. I've written 43 articles that have been published. I've saved 12,000 $47 toward my education. Another click, a photograph of her at 2 a.m., asleep at our kitchen table with textbooks scattered around her. This is what providing for yourself looks like when you're 7, when you're working to prove you're worthy of dreams that your cousins get handed on silver platters. The room was dead silent now, even the catering staff had stopped moving. But you know what the real tragedy is? Lily's voice caught slightly. It's not that I have to work hard, it's that you made me believe I was less than my cousins for so long that I almost believed it myself. She clicked to the final slide. It was a screenshot of an email from Northwestern University. Last week, I was offered a full scholarship to Northwestern's journalism program, not because of family money or connections, but because of merit.
Because of the work I've done, because of who I am, not who I'm related to or who my father is. The gasps were audible now. I felt Carlos's hand find mine squeeze tight. The scholarship covers tuition, room, board, and provides a stipend for living expenses. It's renewable for 4 years based on academic performance and continued journalism excellence. She closed the laptop and looked directly at my parent. I'm not telling you this because I want your approval or your money. I'm telling you this because I want you to know exactly what you missed. You missed watching your granddaughter become extraordinary. You missed supporting someone who would have made you proud. You missed being part of something beautiful because you were too busy protecting something ugly. Patricia stepped forward, her face flushed. That's quite enough, young lady. You don't speak to your elders that way. You're right, Lily said quietly. I don't speak to my elders that way, but I will speak this way to people who have never treated me like family. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched faces around the room, saw shock, embarrassment, and in some cases dawning shame. My brother Jonathan looked like he'd been slapped. His wife was staring at the floor. Even some of the cousins looked uncomfortable, perhaps realizing for the first time how differently Lily had been treated. My father was the first to speak, his voice tight with anger. I will not be lectured by a child about family value. Then maybe you should start demonstrating some, Carlos said, standing up. His voice was calm but carried the weight of 17 years of slights and snubs. Because what you've shown my daughter isn't family, it's conditional love based on prejudice and control. How dare you, my mother began. How dare I what? Tell the truth, love my child unconditionally, work 3 jobs to give her opportunities. Carlos's composure was cracking. How dare I raise a daughter who's twice the person you'll ever. Patricia stepped forward, her anniversary party dissolving around her. You need to leave, now. We were already going, I said, finding my voice at last. I stood next to Lily, put my arm around her shoulders. But first I want everyone in this room to understand something. I looked around at the faces I'd known my whole life, family members who'd watched me grow up, who'd celebrated my achievements until I chose love over their approval. You broke my heart 20 years ago when you couldn't accept Carlo. You broke it again tonight when you couldn't celebrate Lily. But you know what? Hearts can heal. What you can't heal is the knowledge that when it mattered most, you chose cruelty over love. We turned to leave, but my mother's voice stopped us. Rebecca, wait. We can discuss. No, I said without turning around. You can't buy your way back into our lives now. You can't undo 17 years of treating my daughter like a second-class grandchild. You had your chance to be her family. She's about to go out into the world and do incredible things and you won't be part of it. As we walked out of the country club, I heard the conversations erupting behind us. Arguments, raised voices, the sound of relationships fracturing in real time. In the parking lot, Lily finally broke down. All the composure, all the strength she'd shown inside crumbled as she leaned against our car and sobbed. I can't believe I did that, she whispered. I can, Carlos said, pulling her into a fierce hug. You stood up for yourself, you told the truth. You were magnificent, but now they'll never. Never what? I asked gently. Never treat you like family. Honey, they never did that anyway. The aftermath of Patricia's anniversary party rippled through our extended family like an earthquake. Within days I started getting calls. Some were angry, Patricia and my parents, demanding apologies, claiming Lily had been disrespectful and we'd ruined a special evening. But others surprised me. My cousin David called from 3 states away. I heard what happened, he said. I always wondered why Lily wasn't included in the college fund. I thought there must be some mistake. No mistake, I said wearily. Well, it's their loss. I've been following her articles in the Tribune. That kid's got real talent. My Uncle Richard, my father's brother, stopped by the house unannounced 2 weeks later. He'd never been close to my parents. There'd been some falling out years ago over business decisions, but he'd always been kind to me. Heard about the party, he said, settling into our kitchen with coffee and the awkward air of someone trying to repair family damage. Helen called crying, saying you all had attacked them. That's not exactly what happened, I said carefully. I figured as much. Helen's always been good at playing victim when her chickens come home to roost. He sipped his coffee thoughtfully. That granddaughter of yours, she sounds like something special. I showed him Lily's portfolio, her scholarship letter, some of her published articles. He read quietly, nodding occasionally. Hell of a thing, he said finally. 17 years old and already making her own way in the world. That takes character. He looked up at me. You did good, Rebecca, you and Carlos both. The validation meant more than I could express, but the most unexpected support came from Jessica. Patricia's daughter. She showed up at our house 3 weeks after the party, looking nervous and carrying a laptop bag. "I need to talk to Lily," she said. I almost turned her away, protective instincts flaring, but something in her face stopped me. "She's in her room, packing for college." Jessica found Lily surrounded by boxes and suitcases, organizing her life into containers small enough for a dorm room. "I came to apologize," Jessica said without preamble. Lily looked up surprised. "You don't need to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong." "I did though. I let it happen. I knew it was wrong that you weren't getting the same support we were, but I told myself it wasn't my business. I told myself my parents must have their reasons." Jessica sat on the edge of the bed. "But there were no good reasons, were there?" "No," Lily said quietly, "there weren't. I've been thinking about what you said that night, about truth being the most important thing in journalism, and the truth is, you deserved better from all of us." They talked for over an hour. Jessica told Lily about the guilt she'd been carrying, about the conversations she'd overheard between the adults over the years, about how she'd always admired Lily's independence but never understood the cost. "I don't know if this helps," Jessica said as she was leaving, "but I'm going to tell my parents they need to make this right. What they did was wrong, and I'm ashamed I stayed quiet for so long." "It does help," Lily said. "Thank you." Later that night, Lily knocked on my bedroom door. "Mom, can we talk?" We sat on the porch swing Carlos had built when she was little, the same place where we'd had countless conversations about homework and boys, and dreams for the future. "I keep thinking about what Jessica said," Lily began, "about staying quiet when something's wrong." "What about it?" "I stayed quiet too. For years, I pretended it didn't hurt when Grandma Helen would talk about the other grandchildren's achievements but never mention mine. I pretended it was okay that I had to work while my cousins got to focus on school. I told myself it was building character." She was quiet for a moment, swinging gently in the evening air. "But it wasn't okay, and by staying quiet, I let them think it was." "You were a child, Lily. It wasn't your job to fix their failures." "Maybe not, but I'm not a child anymore." She looked at me with Carlos's determined eyes, and my stubborn chin. "I'm going to keep telling the truth, in my writing, in my life, in everything I do, because if I learned anything from that night, it's that silence only protects the people who are wrong."
Move-in day at Northwestern arrived with September sunshine and the kind of crisp air that promises new beginnings. Carlos and I loaded up his truck with everything Lily owned: clothes, books, her refurbished laptop, photographs of family and friends who'd supported her journey. The scholarship had covered everything, but we'd still wanted to help. Carlos had built her a beautiful wooden desk that folded flat for shipping. I'd sewn curtains in Northwestern purple. Small gestures, but they felt enormous to us. The campus was buzzing with activity. Families unloading cars, students saying tearful goodbyes, the organized chaos of thousands of dreams converging in one place. We found Lily's dorm room, a small double she'd be sharing with a girl from Oregon who was also in the journalism program. As we unpacked, I kept expecting to see Jessica. I knew she was starting the same program, probably moving in somewhere nearby. But our paths didn't cross, and honestly, I was relieved. This day belonged to Lily. We set up her desk by the window, hung her curtains, made her bed with the quilt my grandmother had made me when I went to college. The same grandmother who'd loved me unconditionally, who would have adored Lily if she'd lived to meet her. "I wish Abuela could see this," Lily said, as if reading my thoughts. "She can," Carlos said softly, "and she's so proud." When everything was unpacked, we stood in the small room that would be Lily's home for the next year. It looked like her, organized but lived in, practical but warm, ready for whatever came next. "We should probably go," I said, though the words felt like glass in my throat. "Let you get settled before orientation starts." We hugged goodbye in the hallway, all three of us crying a little. Other families were having similar moments around us, but ours felt unique in its weight. This wasn't just sending a child to college. This was the culmination of 17 years of fighting for her right to be here. "Thank you," Lily whispered into my shoulder, for believing in me when they didn't, for working so hard, for teaching me that love doesn't come with conditions. "You earned this," I whispered back, "every single bit of it." Carlos and I made it to the parking lot before we completely broke down. We sat in his truck holding hands and crying, mourning the end of one chapter and celebrating the beginning of another. That night, back home in our too quiet house, Lily called. How's your roommate? I asked. She's great, really nice. We're both night owls, so that works out. She paused. Mom, I have to tell you something. My heart clenched. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. It's just, I saw Jessica today, at orientation. Oh, how was that? Awkward at first. But then we started talking, and you know what she told me? She's paying her own way too. What do you mean? She turned down the college fund, told her parents she couldn't accept money that came with the condition of excluding family members. She's taking out loans, just like we were going to do. I was stunned into silence. She said she couldn't live with herself, knowing she had opportunities I didn't, especially not when she knew I'd worked harder for them than she had. Lily's voice was soft with something like wonder. She said family should lift each other up, not tear each other down. Wow, I know, right? So we're going to be study partners, two Northwestern journalism students, working our way through college together. She laughed, and it was the first truly carefree sound I'd heard from her in months. Turns out truth is contagious. After we hung up, I sat in Lily's empty room, surrounded by the remnants of her childhood. Her bookshelf still held the novels she'd loved, the trophies from academic competitions, the photo of her 8th grade graduation, where she'd been valedictorian. Carlos found me there an hour later, still sitting in the dark. You okay? He asked. I was just thinking about that night at Patricia's party, about watching Lily stand up and tell the truth. She was incredible. She was. But you know what I realized? She learned that from, not the speaking up part, that was all her courage, but the part about not backing down when something matters, the part about working for what you want, the part about loving without conditions. Carlos sat beside me on her bed, took my hand in his calloused one. We did good, didn't we? He said. Yeah, we did good. Outside, the September night was full of possibility. Somewhere 2 hours north, our daughter was beginning the adventure we'd all worked so hard to make possible. And maybe, just maybe, she was learning that the best family isn't always the one you're born into. It's the one that chooses to love you exactly as you are. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Lily. It was a photo of her and Jessica in their Northwestern journalism program t-shirts, grinning at the camera, laptops open between them on a library table. The message underneath was short and perfect. Working on our first assignment together. Topic: what family really means. Thanks for teaching me the answer, Mom. I showed the text to Carlos over coffee, and we both cried again, but this time it was pure joy. Our daughter had found her place in the world, and she'd done it by being exactly who we'd raised her to be: honest, hard-working, and unafraid to demand the love she deserved. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just living so well, so authentically, that the people who tried to diminish you can't help but see what they missed. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, your courage inspires others to find their own. As I watched the sun rise on this new chapter of our lives, I realized that my parents had been wrong about almost everything. But they'd been right about one thing: education was the most important gift you could give a child. They just missed the most important lesson of all. The education that matters most isn't the one you can buy with money. It's the one you teach through example: how to work hard, how to love unconditionally, and how to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. Lily had graduated from that school with highest honors, and she was about to take everything we'd taught her and use it to change the world. I couldn't wait to see what she'd do next.